Hi, I'm back here behind the sign. Welcome to Mrs. PM Reads. Today we are continuing in our story Zoo by James Patterson and Michael Ledwidge. In our last video, the chimpanzees and other animals, but they mostly talked about the chimpanzees led by Attila, attacked the Cure compound in New York. And Attila and I think two other chimpanzees got into Chloe's apartment where she and Eli were. And with the desire to kill, basically, the humans, Attila recognized a scent that he had smelled before, and it brought him kind memories. And so that has to be like Oz's DNA part in Eli, I guess, because Oz was not in the apartment. But they left the apartment. The chimpanzees left the apartment. Chloe and Eli are not harmed. And that's kind of where we left off. So we are in book 4, and this is chapter 88. The message, as it has come to be called at the White House, is delivered the next day at 0900 and put on a loop to repeat for the rest of the day. On all TVs and radios, programming is interrupted. The message is broadcast through megaphones on helicopters and through speakers on army vehicles roving the streets. An image of the Oval Office appears on the 40-foot LED screen at 1 Times Square. The 45th President of the United States, Marlena Grace Patterson, sits behind the desk. Her smoky, dark green eyes look resolutely into the camera, and in a slow, careful voice, she begins. My fellow Americans, I would like to say good morning to you, the president says. But as we all know, this isn't a very good morning for many of us. We are currently experiencing a dark moment in the annals of human history. I say this from hard-won personal knowledge. My own daughter, Allison, died yesterday. She was killed by our family pet. This is a tragedy that I and my husband, Richard, may never recover from, but we need to go on. We all do, and we will. That is what the United States of America does. Despite the efforts of our military, all across our nation, and indeed all across our planet, animals continue to attack human beings savagely and without cessation. Fortunately, after much careful research, our scientists believe they have discovered some of the responsible factors underlying these attacks. For many years, there has been much heated debate over industrial pollution and its contribution to global warming. As we research the dangers of industrial activity on climate change, it seems we were simultaneously overlooking another problem that has been developing unnoticed right under our noses for years. This problem amounts to the destabilization of the biosphere. It has come to light that the apparent animal behavior may be directly related to human activity. The recent buildup of hydrocarbon-rich petroleum products, products, coupled with radiation from cellular phones, has caused changes in the environment. which these animals are reacting to. It has been explained to me that the hydrocarbons normally found in the human environment have subtly morphed, not suddenly, subtly morphed into a substance that many animals' sensory faculties are interpreting as a pheromone, altering these animals' behaviors. These new airborne chemical particles are causing animals to swarm together and attack human beings. In the interest of public safety, we must do everything in our power to reverse this process. That is why I'm asking for the people of the United States of America to come together with the rest of the world this morning. Though I know it will be a great hardship, for the next 2 weeks, we must cease the use of all cellular phones and electricity and cease the burning of fossil fuels. In essence, we need to clear the air, literally, of both radiation and petroleum byproducts if a first step in ending this disaster is to be made. I have just signed an emergency executive order stipulating that all cellular communication towers and power plants in the United States of America will be shut down as of midnight tonight. Except for hospitals and designated emergency personnel, the use of portable generators is banned. The driving of vehicles will also be prohibited, and any violators are subject to arrest. The heads of other major industrial nations, among them the United Kingdom, France, Russia, China, and Japan, have agreed to do the same. You will be informed of any and all further instructions. This 2-week cessation is essential to allow our scientists to confirm the cause of human-animal conflict and for us to formulate a coordinated plan for the future. Thank you for your cooperation. God bless America, and God bless us all. Sounds like a good place to stop, doesn't it? But it's not. We're going to keep going because that was just one chapter. Chapter 89. When the president's speech came on, Charles Grow and I were downstairs in the Navy mess, drinking coffee and trying to brainstorm. I was more of a light brain shower. We were too spent and frazzled to stir up a storm. Really, we were just waiting and watching until the minute hand oozed into place to form the perfect backward L of 9 o'clock. And we followed the scuttling commotion into the adjoining stainless steel kitchen and gathered with the crowd of kitchen staff where they stood, vigilant and hushed, beneath the TV mounted on the wall. When the broadcast was over, the crowd dissolved into anxious murmurs. The power's going out and the army is going to lock people up for driving their cars, said a portly black chef. Somebody switched off the TV. That's the brilliant new plan? He seemed skeptical. Everyone did. I was skeptical too, and I was the primary architect of the brilliant new plan. How does it feel? Said Dr. Grow as we arrived back at our table in the nearly empty dining room. How does what feel? To finally get what you want, he said. You've been trying to warn people for how long? A decade almost. Now they're listening. It's got to be pretty weird to finally get what you want. I just hope it's what we need. I drank the last of my coffee and looked at the sludge in the bottom of the paper cup as though I were a gypsy reading tea leaves. I thought about it. My feelings were definitely of the mixed variety. I was glad the idiotic carpet bombing campaign had stopped, But the problem was that my petroleum radiation pheromone theory was still just that, a theory. There was a strong possibility I could be completely wrong or only half right. It was impossible to rule out other factors contributing to the problem. It was even possible that radiation, electricity, and petroleum had nothing to do with it, that we'd just been barking up the wrong tree, ha ha. I've never seen anybody do commentary inside their story. I do that, so that's interesting. Ha ha. Science is like that. It doesn't have the answers. It guesses, tests, and guesses again. I had my guesses, and now they were going to be tested. Turning off the world's lights was an unprecedented, historic event. What if it didn't work? It feels like the weight of the world is on my shoulders, Charles, I said. I'm pretty much scared shitless. Dr. Groh shrugged. When we returned to the cabinet for another round of meetings, everyone seemed dazed, exhausted, but it was the kind of upbeat dazed and exhausted you see in people racing to meet a deadline. The pizza box and black coffee all-nighter, the burned out look of dedicated people in the final push of getting something difficult done. When the president walked in, a spontaneous burst of applause filled the crowded room. But as the energy secretary whistled through pinched fingers, I kept my hands at my sides. This wasn't the end of something. This was just the very beginning of what I anticipated was going to be a long, hard journey. I couldn't quite join in the self-congratulation just yet, because letting the public know was one thing. Getting them to comply was quite another. In order for this to work, people had to actually stop using electricity and driving cars. Would they? It all depended upon people observing the new emergency ordinances. Realistically, there were nowhere near enough boots on the ground to enforce these contingency laws. So all we could do was count on people to cooperate. In officer training, one of the first things they tell you is to never give an order unless you're sure it will be obeyed. If a law cannot be enforced, it's easy for it to crumble. As Frederick the Great said, diplomacy without arms is like music without instruments. As the president found her seat in the middle of the room, I tried to think of other instances in which Americans had been called upon to sacrifice for the good of the country, or of the world, as the case may be. World War II is a good example. I also remembered all the charity and camaraderie that had abounded in New York after 9/11. It could happen again, right? I crossed my fingers under the table as President Hardison cleared her throat. I hoped so. I prayed so. It was all up to us now. Chapter 90. Because of electrical load and supply concerns, large-scale power grids take time to shut down without damaging the equipment. It isn't until 12 hours after the president's stated deadline that the U.S. grid has finally powered down. The rolling blackout catches some people unaware. Water pumps fail in some areas, and people are stuck in elevators as everything grinds to a standstill. And then there is silence and darkness. But most people are ready for it. By 2100, I'm trying to think, 18 is 6 o'clock, 19, 7. So that's 9 p.m., I believe. I think that's 9 p.m. 2100 EDT military time. Every power plant, airline, and factory in the United States and Europe is powered down, as well as every commercial cellular communication site. In the United States, Army units are deployed to stop all vehicular traffic. For the first time ever, the U.S. Air Force Space and Missile Systems satellites that monitor nighttime data show only blackness, where those twinkling crystalline spiderwebs of light used to be. New York, London, Paris, dark. At the break of rosy-fingered dawn in the Virunga Mountains of Rwanda, Barbara Hatfield wakes inside a shipping container that her zoological research center used for storage. The primatologist locked herself in it almost 3 weeks ago in order to avoid being ripped asunder by gorillas or the rhinos that appeared out of nowhere. I was kind of wondering why we heard about her and then never heard anything else. So she's been hiding in a shipping container. She is in big trouble. The container is a broiler by day and an icebox at night. Her food has run out. There is only 1 gallon of water left. She is weak, hungry, dehydrated, isolated from the goings-on in the rest of the world. She does not understand why no one has come to her rescue. Why has the supply plane not been here in 3 weeks? Isolation, hunger, deprivation, fear. She is feverish, hallucinatory, the borders between reality, nightmare, and dream blurring and dissolving. She is being punished in some way by God, abandoned in the jungle to suffer and die. With great effort, she rolls over onto her hands and knees, crawls to the hole in the container by one of the hinges, and peeks through the slit of vision it offers her. What she sees amazes her. In the clearing near the edge of the tree line, she can see the gorillas, but the females are present again. When the craziness started, all the females seemed to have disappeared. Now they are back. The gorillas are no longer menacing. They are doing what they usually do: eating, mating, playing with their children, lazing in the grass. Barbara stands on spindly, weak legs and unlatches the container's door. She steps outside. The gorillas look up at her. Barbara rears back, stumbling. The hollow metal clangs and drums under her staggering feet, and she grasps the edge of the doorway to catch herself from falling. Should she head back to the safety of the container? Are they going to attack again? Then she stops and watches as the gorillas slowly lumber back into the jungle, vanishing into the trees and ground fog. In Delhi, the sun trickles over a sea of flat rooftops over a dark and quiet city. Strict government enforcement helps ensure compliance with the global energy ban. The 2 new power plants east of the city have been shut down, along with all the communication towers and filling stations. In Yamuna Pushta, the sprawling slum east of the city, I think that's where the Jaguars were, the usually traffic-clogged streets are empty of everything but pushcarts and rickshaws. The migrant people who inhabit the slum tentatively peek out from the cracks of their hovels. They have been easy pickings for the roving packs of pariah dogs and jungle cats that have overtaken the city. As they peer out from their hiding places, they see movement in the streets. Animals, leopards, tigers are moving northward. A soot-faced child ducks fearfully beneath a window. Then his head rises again, looking at a passing leopard, patient, lazy, its shoulders blades undulating, its tail a pendulum. It is walking away. The big cats are moving out of the city, returning to the jungles where they belong. All around the world, it is happening. In London, in Paris, in Rome, in Beirut, in Iowa City. Animals are leaving the cities. Massive packs of animals are dissipating, going home like a crowd after a ball game. And that is where we're going to stop. Interesting. Seems as though the plan has worked. I think the question is going to be, how do they sustain it? All right, you guys. Thank you for joining me. I hope you return to finish the story. We're almost done. We are at we'll start next video, chapter 91. So there's only maybe 1 or 2 videos left of zoo, and then we'll be moving on to something. All right, you guys, have a great day, and I will see you next time.